So the answer, we're going to read in the text now, the answer to the question that was yesterday's shir. The whole shir was the question, and in essence, the answer, but now we're going to read the answer in the text. Somebody wants to dare repeat the question of the Maimer? What's the difference? What two inyanim is he asking? Now that we've explained, you're left with there's no apparent distinction between these two levels. What are the levels? The Ein Sof, after the achlata of the Eibishter to be impressionable, which puts it in the same sug, in the same category as us, as Avodah, so it's impressionable. It can receive, like the water can receive the face that it's got to be placed before it. And that's a Sviras Agnosis. Why is it the same Madrega? Because no?
Also impressionable, that's the...
But there's a Sviras Agnosis. There's no... It's already...
The flutter in our safe is that there should be a Sviras that they should manifest from.
Yeah, but there isn't yet. That's the Ein Sof can receive it. That's a Sviras Agnosis already has names. There's names there. There's there. They exist. It's a darga where they exist. So why is it the same as the Ein Sof? Because the whole point of the Maimon is it doesn't exist only until you call it. So that means it's impressionable. It could have a name. It's the same thing. It's the same darga. Yes, the Sviras Agnosis only exists there because someone will call the Eibishter Chesed. That's Chesed. So it means they're both Yecheles. It's possible for Sviras to exist there, for Gvul to be there. The Darg of Ein Sof, that's where the face appears. That's our Avodah. And that's the Sviras Agnosis is also, it becomes a Darga when we call it upon it. So they're both Yecheles. They're both the possibility. It could be there, but it's not there unless it's Avodah. And both will receive it. Both are impressionable. There's the possibility to be impressioned. But it all depends on the matter. That's true, that's the Sviras Agnosis, and it's true of the Ein Sof. Just the same category. Both a possibility. In essence, Sviras Agnosis, it's only names, which means it's not a Metzias. A person, his name to him is absolutely nothing until someone uses it. You have to understand this very clearly. You walk around without someone calling you, or you don't have to identify yourself on a paper to somebody else. Your name does not exist for you. It's all for it's a tag for the other. If the other's not using it, it doesn't exist for you. It only exists for you when he uses it, and then you turn to him to get your attention. It's not nothing. It's not you. It's to get your attention. So that's a Sviras Agnosis, another Metzias in a Likus per se. It's the possibility of relating to the outside. No, and it's often the same thing. If a face will be faced in it, then the image will be there. If it's not, it's not. So they're both impressionable. And the answer is, let's see inside the text now. The answer. The answer says by the number. Someone find it in the middle of the page, more or less. There's no numbers, but under where it says in brackets, under canal Sif Zayin below the Ramayim Shebem upon him, yeah, middle of the page.
The last word, Yeshleimer, on the line, yeah?
The last word, what?
Yeshleimer's last word on the line about third of the way down.
So I have a different layout, looks like. Okay. Yeshleimer Rabbi what do we mean possibility for something is the words here are so cryptic. Shadova yochel liyos, the thing could be. He emphasizes the thing. We'll see why in a minute. Meaning, dagam shechelis eine makel adova. Yechelis means it's not the source of it, as opposed to koyach, as he says in a moment. Koyach will express itself in a particular way. Koyach, the word is potential. That's a correct word here. Potential will actualize. Yechelis isn't potential, it's possibility. So it's perfectly fine without it ever happening. Possible and equally not possible. So Yechelis is, this thing could happen. But it's not the source, as in it's got to produce this. Vinyanahu, what is it? It could, it's possible, but it doesn't have to be. In brackets, as the difference between potential, which must actualize, otherwise it's well, potential means it's going to happen. The seed is going to become the tree. So Yechelis is not, doesn't have to happen. Nonetheless, the fact that the essence, the possibility of this being is possible, it's in the possibility, the realm of the etzem, that such and such a thing could be or not be, but could be. So that is describing the level of Yechelis of the Esesviris Agnosis. Let's contrast it. Whereas Vashaychas Doirin Soflis Viris, the name, again. So the name, if you call upon it, the name exists. If you don't call upon it, the name doesn't exist. But the Shaychas of Doirin Soflis Viris, the main problem upon him. But the connection between Tzvid is the image that's going to be shown in the water, in the moshel. It's not the mitzad the eating sof something else could be. No, it's the opposite. That the svidus could be an eating sof. So let's just get this physically, the difference of what he's saying. Yechelis means that could be. That's what classic Yechelis is. Mitzad the eating sof, it's not that could be, it's that could be in here. I could invite that in here. Which means it's still pure Ein Sof. There's no otherness at all, despite the tzir. The tzir is nothing other than the water. If the Eibusher chooses, so what this means is, at a subtle level, is Yechelis means there could be something other. Could not be, there could be. But there could be something other. The matter could be. The dover could be. You call the name becomes a mitzias, and I turn to you. You don't call the name, so it's not there. But when you say that the Ein Sof is kimekabel, the avodah of a yid, what that means is, at no point is there legitimacy granted anything other than outside of self. It's the shleimus of the Eibishter that the Eibishter can allow himself to be impressioned. But it's all within him. It's all within him. It never grants legitimacy to the other, which a name at the end does. The dover could be. On some level, there's legitimacy to something else. That's why it's a step down. Therefore, the Esesviris says, Gnosis are a step down from the pure Ein Sof, and it's not the same level. Even in the Ein Sof, we say there's the Kamayim Ponim, there's the images there. That's because God invited the images. Whereas Esesviris Agnosis is already saying, if the outside will call, I'll turn. If you don't, then I won't. Again, we said this yesterday, if you know that someone has a name, you know they live in a society. And you don't live with others. He's not in a desert island. He could relate, he could not relate, he could choose to ignore them, he could choose not to ignore. But there is a world outside of him. The person has a name, it's an acknowledgement that there's a world outside of him, which he may or may not relate to. But this is not a name. This is the shleimus of the Ein Sof, of the Eibush. The shleimus is that he decided he can allow to be impressioned. So what's the legitimacy? Where's the allowance of all this? It all starts and all isn't, starts and ends in Ein Sof, not outside at all on any level. Okay, a lot of words coming in the Maimer. Let's see it in the Maimer.
In your layout,
Let's
I'm
read
asking you. I've got the different layout. I got your layout. What page are you on?
Oh, in my layout.
Yeah, I'm saying because I'm.
Okay, we're the number 56.
Okay.
Just finished 56.
Okay, thank you.
V'hagam, now continuing. Now he's talking about the Ein Sof. It's not, go back to what's Vashayches. Just below the number 56. Vashayches the Ein Sof. This is not that it's Sviras Agnusa, so there's already Hashem's designated names, which only become reality when someone calls them true. But there's a designation of name. There's a designation of the union of otherness. That's Sviras Agnusas. However, the Shayches the Ein Sof is the main part upon him. It's not that the Ein Sof can produce something else to Sviras, that's producing otherness, but rather Shatziyah as Sviras Yachal by Ein Sof. Sviras can be within him, so it starts and ends within him. The Metzius of the Sviras is all his shleimus. Now, even though it's a Yerida, shleimus is Yerida. But even though this is Yerida, then now that he's allowed the face to be impressioned to him, that's a descent from the purity of the Ein Sof, which was without any tzir at all. Shemitzad Atzmai. It's a Yerida. The Ein Sof mitzad Atzmai in Yachas Kalyan Asviris. The Ein Sof is Pshitus. It can be no tzir, and all of a sudden there's a face in there. Kanal Sivhei, like we said before, Sivhei, Shal Derech Svar Sichlish in the Shaykh, Shem Shaykhasim, Givonim, Levim Adam, like an idea that has absolutely no relationship to colors, white and red. It's a different realm. So the Ein Sof L'chayr is a different realm, but what's the answer? But his shleimus, he decided, true, but I decided that I will be impressionable. That's his shleimus. But after God decided that I will be impressioned by Avodah, therefore he becomes impressioned. But what's the origin and start and the end of all of this? It's his decision, not the Maila of Avodah per se, because he granted Avodah that Maila. Because Mokim, what is now the room for? What's the place for Avodah in Ein Sof? Who Shaman the mind look when Avodah Shalahem Yitras Mokim Etzlah? He's allowing it to impress him. The legitimacy is from the Eibishter. That I should be touched by Avodah. Not touching you, it all remains in the eye. More words, saying the same thing, more words, more beer. Therefore, the relationship between the Ein Sof to Sviris, the face that's placed in the image of the water, which is Avodah, who is, and he puts in italics again, not I'm relating to you. There's no you. It's in Ein Sof. That's the shleimus. Efshali Sviras Sviras. There can be Sviras. I've allowed, granted you the legitimacy to be affecting me. So since it's all granted by God, there's no intrinsic validity. Ein Sof is Ein Movadoi. Therefore, this is all happening, as it were, in the Ein Sof. Contrasting to the lower level. Which is Sviras Agnuzas, the names. You can lose the thread here. Where you go back, where what? He was going back to Sfiris Agnuzas. That is when you call the name, the Sfira emerges and becomes, and you've created that. That's called B'Shem Sfiris. We give it a name. We call it Sfiris Agnuzas. Remember, God, Hatzalah, literally separated, granted names. Kumuvalel Sivzayin Madrushim, Hatzel Sarashem is the Lashon of the Maimarim quoted earlier is Hatzel, God emanated 10 names. So that's already going that way, outside. Again, acknowledging on some level otherness as legitimate. And moreover, still talking about this level, if you say it in Mizu, this, that the Eidin Sof can have this level that will produce Svidus. That's not Eidin Sof, that's outside of the Allah Samand Svidus. What's going to trigger this is something else, a dependency on somebody calling him. Now going back to Eidin Sof. That was all Sif Saknissus. He goes back and forth here. But Eidin Sof, whereas the descent we're speaking about in the Eidin Sof before the designation of the names, where we said he's impressionable, but the Kud of the answer is he's impressionable because he decided it's all mitzidoi. Whereas the descent, contrasting itself, the Eidin Sof, that that he should be in a way that the face will be seen in the water, in the Eidin Sof, that Avodah should touch him. He has not produced anything. It's all him. It still remains a pure Eidin Sof. Just like the water. The water is in such a way that it allows for that it allows for a face to be envisioned in it. But that's all the tchunas of the water. The shleimus of the water, the shleimus of the Eibishter is such that he can allow something to be impression within him. So that which is impression within him, what's its legitimacy? Him, not the thing. With Eshes Agnuzis is already a designation for a name and an acknowledgement that this name is activated when somebody else calls it. So the name itself is already a response to something else. Whereas the water being impressioned by the mind is not a response to something else. It's I have invited this. It starts and ends there with the invitation of the divine. Are we clear on this subtle distinction or not? Silence. Okay, good. There's no substitute for thinking it through yourself and in your own language. It gets even more subtle in the next place, my friends. Test is even a bigger chiddush. I just glanced at it. We'll look at it together. Chaim, you want to say something?
No, nothing. Shame is the whole concept of shame is otherness. Mashenki mayim is not.
Yeah, the mayim is the mayim, but there's an image that's in there.
Correct.
That's because the Eibishter decided.
Because the mayim decided that if you're going to put a face there,
I will have the face in me.
I will have that face in me.
I will have that face in me. But that, the validity of that is only because of the mayim itself, the pshittas of it itself, the decision of the Eibishter. Whereas the name is already, if you will call me, I'll turn to you. So this is you. The name acknowledges something else. True, you can walk around a whole life without ever being called and be ignored all your life. No one's ever call you. You never get a letter from the government that leave you alone. So it's true, a whole life you can go without needing a name or anything. But you don't need it. But there's a world out there that could call you, and that's real. And you will respond to them. All right, let's go further. Next, just even deeper now. Even more what we're looking for, even more, it's more subtle and paradoxical or ironic. Let's do our best. Go. The hidden before Badrushim is explained in the Maimar. I think the sources here, Ayin Beis. I mean, Now the face in the water. The fact is the face is there because of the face, the person. If he wouldn't be there, there'd be no image there. Yeah. Now comes a startling statement. Ironic statement here. This used to be unpacked. Because the face that appears in the water is not from the water, it's the person's face. Therefore, it is nothing other than the water itself. As he goes on to say, if the water produced something, then it's two things: the producer and the produced. The water remains the water. The image that's shown in it, I didn't produce this. We just said before, so I'm allowing it in me, so it's still pure. All it is me. It's only water. There's nothing else here. And let's see more words. If the image in the water was produced, nimshech, drawn from the water, then you got two things. The image would be something that the water produced, and you're ending up with two things here. Like fish in the sea. Bottle or to the water, but still it's not the water. It's an entity that's in the ocean. But the image is not an entity, another entity that's in the water. Look at the words. Because the image that's there is not that the water produced it. It's not something separate. But the water itself. Let's continue the ois and we'll try and understand it further. Now what's the nimshal? That is a benimshal, likewise, and the point, the Eibishter, the kiv and the zesh be'oirin sof. Since that in oirin sof yeshtem eses v'resaknuzes. Why the eses v'resaknuzes there? Because they are lost mandas vidas. Because at the end of the day, because of avodah. V'loishin is avmoirin sof, and not the oirin sof produces this. Lachein einom doven livdom oirin sof. It's not something separate. Now there's a big chiddush now. Nice to look at that. This is a new level now. Let's finish the paragraph and then understand it. Now we're saying even before we were contrasting the Eidin Sof Etzivus Agnuzis. Now we're focusing on the Etzivus Agnuzis, and we're saying there's two things there. The Bechitzonius, externally, the previous paragraph stands. It's a level that can produce Svirus. That's Bechitzonius. But Pnimius, that would be like fish. It means something else that the water produces. The art is producing a piece of art. But Pnimius, but what is it, Pnimius? It's still only the pure Eidin Sof. Even the Esesviris Agnuz is Be'emes Eidin Sof. So we need to understand what this paragraph said is big v'hinei over the previous paragraph. The previous paragraph we kind of got a handle on. Okay, so he said that the difference between Eidin Sof and Esesviris Agnuzis is Esesviris Agnuzis says, if you call me, I'll turn to you. So that means there is a you that could call. There could be not. So your existence is marginal completely because it's just a possibility. The Mayim is your existence only because I invite you. So the beginning with you have no intrinsic reality. Now he's saying, let's understand even Esesviris Agnuzis themselves. How do the Esesviris Agnuzis happen? Because of avodah. So the critical thing here is that this is the distinction we need to understand, and I'm still grappling myself. The difference between the water producing, that will make it two separate things. But this image is not produced by the water. This image comes from outside, kavayach. So therefore, it's not two things, but l'chayr it is because there's an image. Yeah, but since it's only because of the decision that you should impression me, even the esesfiris aknizus that is actually produced, the end of the day, that is nothing other than the Ein Sof itself. But b'chitzoni is there's a process. You call me. So what he had over before, what he seemed to have done, is he's walked this through and said, okay, yes, we were saying it's in a lower level because on some level there's otherness. What he seems to be saying here is, but even this actual otherness is only by divine decision. But the subtle point is, I'm not producing this. This is not, which would mean something else. It's all I'm allowing you into my world. Okay, we need to think about this further. Somebody wants to add something. What did oistes? Did it change? Did it add over oisches? The final words of the big bomb comes out that Esses Vesagnus is Shnei Inyonim. Chitzoni is its taka potential for Sviris, which means outside, but with Primis, no, it's still Eid itself.
Before calling the name, it's just a possibility. It means it has no existence.
Right.
Once you call the name in the analogy, the person has an existence. Right? Once you've given the name, the person then exists. Here,
Who's the person, the caller or the one being called?
the one being called. The one being called only comes into existence when the name is called in the analogy.
But so, no, let's just stop there for a second. It's not that the person comes at distance when you call his name. It's his name becomes something. The
Exactly.
name comes into existence.
In as
much
in
that he's now turning to this person. The name comes. Before he's called by the name, he walks around, no name. He's oblivious. It's just negeya. When does my name become significant when someone calls it, and I'll turn to you. So it's the name that now comes into existence by the caller, not the person. His
by
name.
the caller, but still associated to the one being called. Right? It's still, if I call you by your name,
I turn
the
to you.
name becomes in existence, but the one being called now has a mitzias that he didn't have before. He has him with a name. In the reality,
Okay.
The reflection it has no existence even after it's being called. If you apply the analogy directly, when you call the Esther spheres inclusives, before then they are like the Ein Sof, they are just possibility. There's nothing real to them, there's no mitzias. When you call them, then they have a mitzias, if you use the analogy. Here it's saying, no, not even when it's called is there an existence. It is merely just a reflection. That's the real analogy is my the image itself doesn't have its independent existence. It only exists in the caller. It remains in potential to him, to the one being
in the one being called. In the one being called.
It is still just possibility because it's just an image that the caller can perceive. That's why it remains Ein Sof. Why doesn't it, after it's being called, technically after it's being called and it comes into a mitzias, it's no longer Ein Sof. There's too much mitzias there, if you use the analogy. I've created something, I've brought into existence the Eser spheres signatures. But the idea of an image in water means that the waters remained unchanged, completely unchanged. The image only exists for the caller.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit further. So let's get the geography here, and the mechanism, the mechanics. Hello. Okay, you gotta go. My teacher said if you gotta go, you gotta go. What?
30 seconds.
So I'll wait for you because
No.
let's unpack the mechanics and the geography here together. You know, the wrench in the works here is also, which is we're struggling with, is because, you know, copy for the horse thing. What causes the metzias is the caller. But the caller doesn't have an mitzvah to begin with. It's only because of the achlata. So the call is preceded really. So let's unpack this and try and go and get the dynamic here.
At the level of Mr. Spirits, there is a caller. That's why it's not insane. There is a caller, there is a being called, there is the image.
But that itself is only because of the decision of the Eibishter. So it still starts. Yeah. So let's get the geography here, and try and walk it through a little bit. So Ein Sof, and then the lower levels, that's the Sfiras HaGnuzos. Ois Ches explained why they're two separate levels. Because Esses Sfiras HaGnuzos is already a designation of a name. True, if it's not called, it doesn't exist, but it could be called, and that possibility remains. So that means that there's an outsider that could call. Acknowledgement of an outsider. That which we say that in the Ein Sof, it's something you have to say, we have to make it clear before this whole leads to Oisius. You have to understand like this. Once the Eibush is called, Halas Man, and he allowed for that by the designation of names, then mind upon him, then there is the image of the Yid in the Ein Sof Mamish. Then there's an image. So before that, there's the possibility, when he explained the difference between the two possibilities, it's not the same possibility. There's a possibility that you should touch me. That's a Sfiras HaGnuzos. But Ein Sof is the possibility that I should decide that there should be a you that should touch me. It's a different possibility. But Lepoyo, let's get the mechanics here. The Ein Sof is Poshet. There's no Sfiras, there's no nothing. Then, this is the mechanics, friends. Then Hashem, a lower level, designates names. 10 names. If called, then these names become a Metzius. These Sfiras emerge. Where do they emerge? In the Ein Sof. This is a point I don't know if it's clear. These images will emerge in the Ein Sof. Let's get this clear today, then tomorrow we'll revisit the Eish Tes. What I said now is clear, I'll say it again. And if anybody disagrees, you're welcome to disagree with me. The Chayre comes out again like this. Mechanics. First of all, Atzmos decided this whole process, but we're not speaking about Atzmos. That's the cause of why, that's all why it's all happening. But now the mechanics now, which starts at the first level of divine revelation. The first level of divine revelation is Ein Sof, and it's Poshet Betachlis Apshitus. Finished. Next level is the Rotzen that produces the Esses Sfiras HaGnuzos. Now this is just, it's a name, it's a potential, it's not reality until a Yid will summon it. Now here comes the kicker. Once summoned, the Esses Sfiras HaGnuzos affected by our Avodah, the Sfiras HaGluyos, Allah Osman, the Esses Sfiras HaGnuzos become impression in the Ein Sof. The Sfiras become impression in the Ein Sof. The Mayim now carries a tzir mamish, a form. You disagree? No? No? What are you saying?
The image that's reflected in the water becomes a thing only to the person.
We're not. You're giving a. That's the next step. We're going to dissect the reality, not the reality, just the mechanics of it. But the mechanics we need to appreciate that the Ein Sof that initially there's no impression. After avodah, there becomes impression. Now, what that means, what we're going to unpack now. But this has to be understood. That's the Poshet, K'mayim Panim El Panim. In the Mayim, in the Pshitas of the Ein Sof, there is an image there. What? But again, to get the mechanic, initially, no. It's only Esses Sfiras HaGnuzos That's where there's a shamus, quasi. Someone will call it all of its subtlety. But when there is avodah, two things happen. That's what I'm trying to say. Two things happen. The Sfiras Agnus has become a mitzias, and the name now becomes a reality because someone used it. And not only that, that simultaneously means that in the Oid Ein Sof, a Yid is impression. The Mata's impression. There is Sfiras, an image of the Adam Lamata in Oid Ein Sof. Or Atzilis, he says, which is a reflection of our Avodah. In the Oid Ein Sof. Now that's what Eistes is now dissecting and explaining the subtlety of. Bechitzonius, it's Sfiras, because it was all set in motion by the Esses Sfiras Agnosis, is how I'm calling it. But now that the Esses Sfiras Agnosis now emerges, it's not Gnosis anymore. It now emerges and is impressioned in the Oid Ein Sof. The Pnimius is still all Oid Ein Sof. It's a hugely subtle point that needs to be thought about. We continue Be'ez Hashem tomorrow, the challenging hour of 6 o'clock.